Bonjour à toutes et tous, vous écoutez SuperFriends, votre podcast comics préféré pour une nouvelle émission au format SuperFriends, qui est donc le podcast qui va à la rencontre des personnes qui font vivre la culture comics et la pop culture par leur travail. Émission assez exceptionnelle aujourd'hui puisque nous vous proposons une interview de 1h40 avec l'immense Michael Bendis. Je vais pas vous faire l'affront de vous faire le résumé de Brian en seulement une petite introduction, mais c'est le co-créateur de Miles Morales, c'est l'architecte de Marvel des années 2000 et 2010. Il est passé chez DC, il a fait un passage remarqué chez DC Comics, et maintenant il continue en Creator Round. On va essayer d'aborder tout ça dans le temps qui nous était imparti. C'était une longue discussion. Et pour celles et ceux qui ne sont pas anglophones, je vous rassure tout de suite, toute l'interview a été retranscrite sur comicsblog.fr afin que vous puissiez quand même en profiter. Je sais que c'est pas forcément le plus idéal, mais l'important c'est de pouvoir savoir ce que Brian nous a dit. Je vous laisse après le générique avec l'auteur.
So it's really a pleasure to have this chat with you, Brian Michael Bendis. It's such an honor, actually, also just to have you here on our podcast. And there are so many topics I would like to discuss with you. So I don't know how to start, but how's it going right now? Because you've been in the news lately a lot with the deal that you got with Dark Horse. With your Jinx World getting to Dark Horse, with also the deal you recently signed with Amazon. So let's start briefly. How would you summarize first your whole career right now?
My whole career?
Yeah,
well,
no, but how would you present yourself? How would you introduce yourself if someone doesn't know you? Who is Brian Michael Bendis in 2024?
Oh, it happens all the time. They go, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" And I go, "I'm a writer." And they go, "What do you write?" And I write comic books. And then there's like a pause where they decide whether they need more information or not. This is my favorite part of the whole time. And it depends, like, and then they go, "What comic books?" And then I'll say, "Well, I helped create Miles Morales," and that usually is the thing people know the most in the world. So that it usually gets. And then someone next to me will go, "And Jessica Jones, and blah blah blah," and that's usually the conversation happens. And then I'm humbled, and it's very lovely because the MCU and all of the TV shows and stuff have offered us, not just me, but my friends like Matt and Kelly, Sue. We're living in a time where we get to literally live out the experience of having these things become what they're becoming in the culture. We're the first generation of creators to actually be around while it's happening. I mean, Stan got to see it, but he was in his 70s and 80s and 90s, and when you learn the history of comics, Jack Kirby would have loved to have seen this happen. There was he talked about movies starring his characters. And they think about the end of Avengers Endgame, which had everyone cheering, the only thing in the last 10 years that everybody cheered about, right? And how lovely that would have been. And yet we get to experience it while we're still in the game. It's kind of an amazing time, and I get to share it with my friends who also are experiencing it. So it's an amazing experience. Anyway, yeah, I honestly can't believe it. But all of that, everything that happened at Marvel, continues to happen at Marvel and DC and all that, a lot of that was, it remains these beautiful childhood dreams that I had, including things that I couldn't even have imagined. This is so far beyond what the goals were, right? And also Miles and other things around that offered me an opportunity to pursue what you could maybe see as my adult dreams. Unbelievably, I've been able to make my childhood dreams come true, and now I'm having this amazing opportunity to use that to really think about what my adult dreams are and making those come true. And the situation at Dark Horse which evolved into the situation in Amazon, is that. So, and that is, and my adult dream is to live a life like Mike Mignola, to have created characters and then to see them through, and to be known for them. And that seems like such an honor in itself. And so that's the attempt right now. Like I bring up Mike Mignola. It's just like there's people who have done this, and you could admire them, and that there's a goal to achieve there.
How do you feel about, you mentioned Miles Morales or Jessica Jones, but yeah, truly these characters just evolved way beyond the comics. You know, like do you remember when you created Elias? Did you just thought just a little bit that this Jessica Jones character would go out on the screen, that it would be such a big actor, and even though for Miles Morales?
You know, it's all amazing, and first of all, I have to say, like, even that last question, it all sounds like bragging, and I'm so not. My heart has lost any need to brag. It's such a wonderful feeling. To when I was younger, I think I may have had a little bit more ego, and now but these amazing things have happened, and you ask about them, and I must answer honestly. But I do feel in my heart, I'm not saying it to be braggy. I think a lot the readers share this with us. Like we all made this together, and that's why people like read comics in this day and age. They're like sharing an experience just beyond the reading of it. And they want to be part of it, part of the fandom. And it's a wonderful experience. Sometimes it's just being a part of the artwork of it, just being the craft of comics. So I'm more talking about that and sharing that experience with people than I am about, I have this and I have that. It's just really, I get a little squirrely about it. So I just wanted to say that. But I will spend the rest of my days trying to figure out why Miles Morales conjures the best work out of so many people in so many mediums. It's not just the film, of which there are 1,000 of the best animators and artists that work in film today working on that project, but the video games, of which are even bigger in some areas and get to a larger audience. It's a stunning situation to me. It's not just that the thing gets adapted, but it gets adapted so lovingly, and every artist like adds something to it. They like bring themselves so wonderfully to the project, and it's almost this massive project of creators yes-anding an idea into the highest level without ruining it, with always being additive. It's amazing. I can't. That's the part I can't believe the most. Like, I know there's other parts of this that are amazing, but I as an artist and someone who lived the life of like my heroes that said, this is how you collaborate, and this is how you put together an idea, and this is how you share it with people, and then you try it, and then in real time you get to see this reaction. It's just the most amazing thing. It comes down to like literally like last night, the last thing I saw before I went to bed was the most beautiful Miles Morales birthday cake on Instagram. Like there's literally a hashtag, Miles Morales cakes, Miles Morales birthday cakes. And if you're ever in a shitty mood, just click on this and just see like little birthday parties all over the world. It's the most beautiful thing. In a million years, I never would have thought, while I was typing Miles Morales like for the first time, and there would be birthday cakes everywhere. And it just never, it's a humbling experience at the highest level. No, the answer is no, I did not see this coming. But this is the part that amazes me the most.
And I wanted
the part I would have never imagined, I think, is the part of it.
Yeah, I also wanted to know if at some point it had ever been kind of difficult to let go of some of your creations, because eventually you left Marvel and you were not in charge anymore of Miles comics books or even Jessica Jones comic books. Was it hard to let go of these fictional children and to have them being written by other writers?
No, it was. It wasn't hard. And number one, like for Jessica Jones, I was in a position where I had returned to the character, so I was actively writing her just before I left, and I was able to request the handoff to Kelly Thompson, which is a writer I really, really like. So that one was like I was now getting a Jessica Jones I may have been more interested in than my own, and that's very exciting, right? Like I would like to read that. And then all the other characters were handed down to a bunch of creators. I don't want to miss anybody who all were, Riri Williams too. All these characters got handled very well and with a lot of just a lot of care. I didn't see anybody. That's the thing too. You just trust the situation, and then a few months later, you go, "Oh look, everyone's doing great," and everyone's like really passionate. And then also, you get to experience through other creators' eyes what they thought was unique about the stuff, or what they liked about it, or what they wanted to build upon, or what they wanted to let go of. That's very interesting to me. Like I have no judgment on it. I'm just like, oh, that's the part you wanted to run the torch. As someone who has picked up other people's torches and ran with them, and so many books there, I know the feeling. I also was so grateful that I had done so many that I felt no pull towards it. I could just cheer it on. You know what I mean? Like I also the projects ahead of me that weren't Marvel were so daunting to me personally, creatively, that I was so focused on where I was headed and not like where I had been. Also, anytime I felt some kind of pull, like, oh, I miss my babies, Phil Lord would call and needing a little consultation on the films. So there's threads that I always have back if I'm dying to talk about Miles with someone or do something. He's actively in production, so that's there. But I think very healthily, I've been looking forward and staying present with my work. I think that's the best thing I could do as a creator, and also for the people buying them. I think that's kind of what they want from me. But I have an adult child in real life. I have an adult child now. My oldest is an adult. So all the experiences of having an adult child. Oh, you're off. You're off living your life. Like this is we've gave you everything I got. Go forth. It feels very similar to how I feel about the characters at Marvel. I'm very proud of them. I'm rooting for them. And if anyone needs me, I'm here. But you got to do your own thing. It feels very similar to that. Does that make sense, or am I being
No, perfectly. And especially because we know that you created mice to give your daughters a superhero also. So it's really the same thing, that now they're grown ups, and also you had to let go mice in terms of comics.
And they certainly it's fun that I get to share Miles with them. Like, Miles is something their friends know about, so they get to celebrate that. So, yeah, it's amazing.
Do you think, or do you agree if I say that there's a Bendis style of writing that emerged from your time at Marvel, like for mostly with also the dialogues and the decompression of the scenes? Do you think that you really left some kind of mark on how mainstream comics are written?
Not for me to say. I don't know how I could answer that question. I certainly tried, and I gave it everything I had with every issue, and I'm very proud that the relationships that I had there editorially and creatively are everyone feels fondly about it. Like sometimes collaborations, and I've seen them, and like, oh, they get ugly, and or like a bad divorce of some sort, and the ones that are deeply important to me. We're all looking at each other fondly from wherever we are, and I think that's the most important part to me. Is everyone felt respected and had a good time. So yeah, it's an enormous privilege to have the work out there. To be published at all is a privilege, first of all, as any comic creator. To be published at all, and then to have this work out there, and to have, thankfully, because of the way Marvel cycles their stuff out, I had like 10 new trade paperbacks coming out this year of collections of material that are like new to that audience. Like it's also, something's happened in comics where even when I was coming up, there was new comics and old comics, and now it's just all comics. Like it's just people just reading from timelines wherever they're most comfortable and most interested, and people are reading Infinity Gauntlet from decades ago as equally as they're reading, the new X-Men stuff. So it's all like, well, I feel it when people are reading our Daredevil. They're not reading it with a nostalgic tone. They're reading it as if it's brand new and it's decades old. So that's a gift that I can then take that. Oh, good. I'm like, if ever I was needed to be seen in that space, it's constantly happening, and then I can go take that and make the new stuff. That's how I've been feeling lately.
And are you still reading a little bit of superhero comic books?
Yeah. I'm not sick of them. I'm being pulled in another direction at the moment. And also, I'm a big old genre baby. I work very strongly in genre. I love them dearly. So yeah, and also having had so many of these jobs over the last years, both at Marvel and DC, and really enjoying them, like really enjoying the craft of writing Superman and Legion and Spider-Man and Avengers. Like it was like I came away with it, almost all of these, as a different kind of creator. Like I learned a lot doing any of them, and what a great experience it was, or just sharing it with the readers. So it's fun knowing exactly how that feels on the best day to watch another creator, a creator that I like, go through that. Like I'm a big fan of Jason Aaron, and he's getting to write Superman now. Oh my God, that's so exciting, because beyond the fact that I'm just like his work, it's very exciting that he's going to experience this experience I know is very excellent, very like nurturing spiritually. I don't mean to be too hippie, but Superman feels very good in the soul while you're writing it. And when I see other people doing it, I'm like, oh, good, you may feel that too. That's awesome.
And I never had the chance to speak with you about your time at DC. You were in France in 2017 for a comic convention.
Such a good show. My God, that was a good show.
Literally like 2 weeks afterwards, we learned that you were going to DC. So my colleague interviewed you at the time, but we never had the occasion to speak about this again. If you don't mind going back a little bit in the past. So what happened when you were hired? What made you go from one big two to another? Even if you were not sick of Marvel, it's sure that you had been writing there for more than 10 years. So maybe you just wanted
20. I was headed towards 20, and I was like very aware, like the way a lot of American comics are. You're lucky enough to get the job, and it's a life-changing job, of course. But it's kind of like being on Saturday. You know what Saturday Night Live is? Do you have that there? The TV show Saturday Night Live, where like cast members come on the show and they stay as long as they can, or as long as they want to, or as long as they're allowed to, and then they leave, and the show continues. And it feels like Marvel's the same, right? And some people last a little bit of time, and some people, like Kenan Thompson's been on for 20 years, right? I feel like I was like Kenan Thompson. Like I really found a way to stay longer than most people get to stay. But even then, it's still it's time to go. It's not built to stay forever and ever and ever and ever. It's built for people to make their statement and then move on, hopefully before you get fired. Hopefully before everyone's sick of you. And I never had a real sense that it was time to go. And I was even told by people at Marvel, please stay as long as you'd like. And it was very sweet. And but at the same time, I could tell it was harder to find things for me to do that I had not done. Right. Mm-hmm. And I had returned to Daredevil, and I had returned to Jessica Jones just to see how I'm a different writer now. Like I've evolved as a writer. Like, let me apply some of my feelings now to Jessica Jones. What would that be? And I know as a creator, I was having a very interesting time of it. But hold on one second. But I was on some level repeating myself a bit, right? And though in my heart I wasn't, I now see from other people's perspective, he's back to that, including Dan DiDio, who called me up and goes, "You're back on Jessica Jones. Get over here. Come do something else. You're literally doing that thing." And I was like, "Well, that's an opinion. That's not wrong." And but I had planned initially that once I was done at Marvel to build something very similar to where I am right now, which is find maybe a home in which we could develop and create new things, and even calling Dark Horse and saying, "Hi, I'm Dark Horse." Is actually a publisher that is here in town. It's a local, so I've known Mike Richardson like socially for years and years and years, and we shared airplanes together, like flying to LA. We happened to be on the same plane, having wonderful conversations. So I knew I had a place, and he told me, like, when you're ready, come to Dark Horse. So I knew I had a safe home, and that was going to be the plan. And then out of nowhere, Dan DiDio called and literally made an offer I couldn't not take very seriously, and we got together and met, and we didn't know each other. Like I never even socially had been in a party he was at, and we got together, we talked, and he told me what he was looking for, and it just came at me in a way that I had to say yes. So I took I took a visit to DC land, and I really had a great time, even though what was going around us was quite chaotic corporately. None of it really hit me directly, other than you could see that it was happening, and that was frustrating to watch. And I'm sad that I for those who don't know, I was there for what ended up being the end of that era at DC Comics, and though it was fascinating to be part of, I'm sad to see it all go, because they were so passionate creators trying very hard to do something right up to the end there. So yeah, and then the pandemic hit, and it was like, all right, let's reevaluate, and also at the same time, throughout, even from the time I started at DC till now, in America particularly, book publishing and graphic novel publishing had evolved a few times because of books like Raina Telgemeier and Dogman, and the YA space of graphic novels, including a new infusion of manga titles, had really evolved the entire publishing world in a way that some of us may not even have been able to fully perceive, even if we wished for it. And where what is considered mainstream is almost everything, and that's quite amazing. So I was very eager to be part of that, which includes our book series Phenomena, which we do with Abrams Comics Arts, which gets published in France and in other spaces. Oh, thank you. Oh, it's so beautiful too. They did such a great job on the cover, man. Yeah. So anyway, this beautiful book that Andre. Oh, thank you. That's nice. This beautiful book I do with Andre Lima Araujo is our way of entering these new publishing spaces and discovering how it feels to make comics this way versus the way I've been making them on the American comics hamster wheel for years and years and years. So yeah, so DC was awesome, and then here we are in this new evolved publishing space and trying new stuff here too. So if you have any follow-ups on DC too, I didn't mean to just tie it up in a bow and send it to another subject, but yeah, I had some great collaborations there, some really truly amazing experiences making comics.
Yeah, well, one of my questions, I think you mentioned it in interviews at the time, is why you chose or maybe you didn't, but why you had chosen Superman as the primary character that you wanted to write at DC? Because it seems that this character in particular is going to be more and more important during the next month and years, and I wanted to have your perception about this character.
Well, number one, I'm a little Jewish boy from Cleveland, Ohio. So when all you learn is this is the home of rock and roll, and this is the home of Superman. This is what you hear growing up. So I feel almost like a connection to Superman on that level. It's very much a big part of my cultural history beyond comics. And so when I met Dan and I didn't ask for Batman. That was the funniest part. It was when he said, all right, we're going to have to figure out, we're really covered on Batman, but we'll figure out a way to get you in there. And I go, no, I don't want to write Batman. He goes, what? Like everyone wants to write Batman. So I think he was like, I go, no, if it's available. And also I had learned over the years, these jobs are someone else's job. And if you got to make sure you're not taking someone's existing job. There's a difference between there's an opening and making an opening. And I've always, even at Marvel, I would start a brand new series before I would start or vote to take someone else's job. So I said, hey, Superman, if there's a Superman project or a Superman space, let me know. And he let me know that they were changing guard at 1,000 no matter what. And I was, and it was going to put me stepping on the gas, like me coming in earlier than we initially planned, but Action 1000, right? Like you got, like, of course. So that was just a great timing to start right there.
And you also created
and to actually answer the question you asked, I felt like I also felt like, this is a different kind of character. This isn't Tony Stark or Miles Morales. Clark is a very different person, and I wanted to explore that. It was just that alone was very interesting to me, and also to explore the idea of Superman in this day and age. And also, Superman is one of those characters who is very wrongly sometimes labeled as boring or of a different time. Like Cyclops, like I dealt with this at Marvel. Say, like Cyclops is. As soon as you tell me the character's boring, I will do everything in my power to prove otherwise. Right? Like there's a much more complicated idea going on here. So to really lean into all those ideas with Superman in this day and age was very exciting to me. Like I really wanted to make the most of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you also created a new character that was Naomi.
Yeah, that was that's one of probably the best experience that happened at DC was David Walker and I are close friends, and we actually teach together a college class at Portland State here together. And part of the class is to journey into the hero's journey, the structure, bringing yourself into your work. And we were literally standing across the classroom from each other, lecturing back and forth about it, and looked at each other like, oh, we should be doing this. Like we're talking about ourselves. We should be making a comic book that represents all of this stuff. So, and also like part of my deal at DC was they said, we haven't had a lot of new characters created. And we want to like hire you to put some new toys in the toy box, like So it was not just here, come here and write some comics. It was please actively create new stuff, and we'll see if any of it lands. And if so, it was Naomi and Jenny Hex, and there was quite a few characters, new pieces in each one of the franchises I could touch, and so. But Naomi in America, I don't. Just so you know, like. Naomi got to be a TV show before we were done with the first miniseries. It was like this hyperly accelerated version of what happened with Jessica Jones, where it like percolated for years and years and then finally found the right home and the right team. This one, it was like all of that experience squished into like 3 weeks. Yeah, and it was, and we're the whole time. Me and David were going, we're not done baking the cake. It's not, you're serving the cake before it's finished. But at the same time, you want to see, well, what happens if you do that? What happens if they build it on their end while we're building it on our end? And so that experience got interesting too. So, and only because I've already had the long gestation periods of having other students develop. So it was all privilege, of course, but it was deeply fascinating. And I must say, a healthier way to spend the pandemic here in America, to have Zoom calls with Ava DuVernay and stuff like that. That was pretty, kept spirits up. So yeah, it was a great experience, which I know that David and I look back on very fondly. As we talked about it just briefly recently.
And Gemma was fantastic on the art also.
Oh my God, yes. That again, there is, I would argue, not a bad looking book at my entire DC run. Every book was about as beautiful a book as you can make it. I worked with heroes like Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. That was my first DC comic. I got to work with Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, one of my heroes. It was a favorite of Dan DiDio, but oh my God, it just started off there, just kept going. Every single book, Ivan, I got to work more with my friend Kevin McGuire. Just every single book was beautiful. And then Jamal was someone we met at DC, and we just, I think, met him at a perfect time in his space there. It was like we really had to share him with Far Sector. I don't know if you remember the book Far Sector, but it was like that was one of those things where like we're keeping him from Far Sector, and that's a book I want to see even more than Naomi. So it was a fun experience.
But compared to the experience of creating Miles Morales, which was aimed to be the new Spider-Man in the Ultimate Universe, is it different to create a character completely anew? For example, Naomi or even Jessica Jones. How do you start when you are doing this kind of creation? Do you start by the backgrounds and the motives of the character, or maybe just by their personality?
The interesting difference between creating characters like in the Marvel Universe versus creating something brand new from scratch when there's nothing is that you are adding something to an existing play space. Like the Marvel Universe is this playground that exists and it breathes and it has all these pieces to it and it has themes, reasons it exists. So when you're adding a character like Miles in it, you're creating a character from scratch, but then you're also bringing him to this space where there's a lot of things to react to. Jessica Jones as well. Like Jessica Jones didn't fit in her space in the Marvel Universe, right? Like that was the whole idea, was like, what if there was a character that had powers and just didn't make the A-list? They just didn't even had a moment and that moment passed and now what? And but it's very much reacting to the existing Marvel Universe or someone, having a logical space in it. And that part is the most fun to find. That's when you have something, when the character comes into the Marvel Universe, which is shared by so many characters, and is bringing a new perspective, like showing us something that was right there, but it affects them differently than we thought it would have. I hope that makes sense. I know that was the part that surprised me the most, that I don't think I planned on, but then I'm like, oh, that's the hard part, and that's when it works. And so I think when I think of characters like Miles or Jessica, or characters that were lesser known, and I think about what the difference is, I think it's because like Miles has a very strong opinion about his space in the Marvel Universe, and so does Jessica. They're very different, but it's a very strong take, which the audience can either agree with or empathize with. Yeah. Did that answer the question? I'm sorry. Yeah. I feel like sometimes you're asking a very, very good question and I answer a different question by accident.
Well, that's the rules also of the interview. It's all right. But so my perception, because I've been reading comics, but I'm also, like I said, a journalist, was my perception at your time at DC at the end was that maybe there was like some clash of directions between what you were doing, what Scott Snyder was doing, and what also Geoff Johns was doing, and I wanted to.
At DC. At
DC, yeah.
Okay.
And it really seemed to me like it was a struggle or a battle of like captains to lead the DC embarkation. Am I wrong? Am I totally wrong?
Yeah, no, it certainly didn't feel that way on my end. I wasn't clashing with anybody on a day-to-day basis. The only thing that was clashing was like. Just so this was public, so I don't think it's gossipy, but a lot of people were getting fired at Warner Brothers, and so you would have a relationship with an editor, which I still like. People I still talk to personally. They're all of a sudden they're not there anymore, and so this thing you were building with a partner, so people know, like an editor is very much a partner in whatever direction you're taking something. And then all of a sudden your partner's gone and there's someone else, or there isn't someone else. And so that was the struggle for the last year. And then the pandemic hit and things got really confusing. And it was also hard to know, are we still going to be making comics? Like people forget, like there was some dark days of the pandemic where, well, we certainly don't need comics. I mean, we're in the need mode. And to be fair, though it was a struggle, I must say they kept us working the whole time. Like they never penciled down. At Marvel they had paused production for a while, and that was where a lot of people went, maybe that was it for comics. And then but it wasn't. And part of the reason was DC kept putting stuff out even though there wasn't anywhere to put it. And so it was kind of a mixed blessing. We're like, oh, good, I get to just still do this, but it was in a very struggling time for both the company and obviously the bigger world, which we're dealing with much bigger issues than whatever struggle we're having in making our Batman comics. I didn't clash with anybody. Also, I wouldn't like. I've learned. I've watched people clash over things, and it never seems to go well. And it certainly never generates a good book. Which is all that matters. Like we're here to make good books and entertain people. So when I watched clashing happen, and I've kind of like promised myself never to do it. Like it's not worth it, and it's not what I want to do. Like some people like come into rooms that are looking for fights, right? They're looking for tussle. I'm just not interested in it. I want to make comics. But I can see, I think that. So that's the struggle you're feeling. It's just what was going on behind the scenes. But again, I gotta say, Dan, to the very last day he was there, kept every promise he made me, and some of them were outlandish promises.
Yes, so maybe that was also maybe not a decision, but that was that had an impact. The fact that he most of all was fired because he was the one who got you into DC Comics. So
he got us all in. He built the entire roster of creators that was going on there. So yeah, it was a super bummer. Not him, but. Bob Harris as well, who was someone that we were working closely with, and Brian Cunningham, who was my editor on a lot of stuff, and Jamie Rich, and they've all moved on to their next chapters. But at the time, they were like, "Oh no, we were all in the middle of something." Yeah. So and very publicly, if people are interested in their minutia, their comic book publishing minutia, Dan was in the middle of building this project called 5G.
5G, yeah.
That was the one that got away. That was the one we were really trying to make something of that, and then it just never happened.
So you were involved also in the 5G?
I was. Yeah, I mean, they were. I mean, it was Dan's thing for sure. I certainly But I was there to try to. We had writers' rooms. It was me and Josh Williamson and Dan Jurgens, and we were trying to put it all together, and then it all just went away.
Can you say what you would have done for the 5G?
Yeah, I've talked about it a little bit, and it won't surprise you when I say it. And I've certainly learned at my time at Marvel that if you can see it coming, start planning now. Because like some of my best moments on Avengers were I would go to a publishing retreat and they would say, "Here's what's happening in X-Men next year," and I could plant a seed that makes everybody look like we know what we're doing. All right, and even if it's an illusion, like a little magic trick, it does, and it makes the readers, you play like you feel like little connections, not like the part that makes it feel like homework, but the part that makes you feel like rewarded for paying attention, and that's my favorite stuff. So here we were starting the 5G, and the plan was, and again, normally I wouldn't share someone else's stuff, but he's been very public with it in newsletter. Like almost everyone involved has written newsletters and behind the scenes. James Tinian's written about it and at great length, and because so much work disappeared when it went away that people just want to say, "Hey, we had this giant thing we were just about to do." And so the basic idea was that there were a handful of creators that would each be in charge of what he called the pillar of storytelling. Like there would be basically a Batman pillar, a Superman pillar, a cosmic pillar, a crime pillar, and mine was like a spy pillar. Like I was very interested, and I had almost walked myself into having done all my Legion and Superman. I was very into the Checkmate spy.
Yes, and the League. Yes.
That was where my heart was being pulled towards all those characters. And so they're like, Checkmate, something we want to build. And I'm like, great, I want to build it. And so I knew a year ahead of time that my pillar was going to be Green Arrow. Like I had like 6 titles that I was kind of basically Papa bearing. I won't even say in charge of, but like there was a couple I was going to write and a couple I was going to co-write and just champion on. But it was going to be like this, like each of us had like a mini imprint of DC Comics, and each of us were going to be in charge of like the tone of it. And at one point, Matt Fraction was working on the cosmic stuff, and everyone was building, and Dan DiDio and Bob Harris would come up here to Portland and sit with us, and we were slowly cooking it, and it was all coming together. And I had literally written like the first pages of what it would have been like the first special, which included some sort of handoff to John Kent to be a new Superman. There was to be a generational shift of characters, of which Clark and Bruce all there, but they have a different relationship to it. Like here's and that this would be now the 5th generation of these characters, and then everything. The big hook was everything that's ever been seen in a DC comic is canon. It all happened, and it all matters. And the big flow chart that Dan had pulled out a few years ago was to show how hard they had worked to figure out how it all worked in the timeline. And so there was 5 generations. That's what 5G is. Yeah. 5 generations of superhero storytelling, of which we're about to enter the 5th generation. And then nothing.
And then,
but it was yeah, and it's a bummer because it was fun, and it was kind of like this mixture of the way Dan does things and the way we did things at Marvel. Like it was like trying to find a way to communicate with each other about these characters in a way they hadn't before, and it just went away. Show business.
I'm going to switch to your creator-owned stuff, but I had just a last question about DC, and it's more like a personal grudge, let's say.
Oh, yeah, please. I love a personal grudge.
I'm going to roast you, Brian. No, but why did you age Jonathan Kent so quickly?
Because Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, he was a fan. He still is a fan favorite character, and I can see where it all led to right now. But at the time, readers were enjoying a lot the father-son relationship we had. We didn't have many children superheroes characters in the DC universe, and so you arrived on the Superman books, and after just one or two story arcs, he was nearly an adult. And I think that a lot of readers maybe were angry because
I am aware.
So now is your time to make amends to the French readers.
well, I'm of two minds. Yes, I apologize for making anyone angry. Of course, it's never the. I'm not looking to do that, but I did see the journey of John Kent as something that could be more complex and more interesting, and maybe the most interesting character in the modern DC universe. But like where he is and how he's being raised and what's in front of him seemed very interesting. And I love Super Sons, like every word of it. But when I see stuff like that, the Marvel version of me, like the Stan Lee in me, goes, all right. Let's Uncle Bendis. Let's what can we do to create a gravitas here that makes it even more important, right? And so and also we're dealing with Superman and how Superman lives in a world of almost godlike control over his situation, and to create a new situation that he had no control over, so we can speak to the bigger ideas of parenting and life, and like you can hope to want to have things one way, but life's going to change them for you. And yes, I will admit I had been through some traumatic events in my life that I wanted to kind of work it out a little bit in my work. And so just feeling that working that out, you don't always get to choose the path of the story that you're hoping for. And when I was writing, and I'll tell you the big one, it was when I was writing Luke Cage, which are a very similar character to Superman in a lot of ways. And the one way, of course, is that he's invulnerable. You're not going to hurt him, right? Mm. So that changes his perspective of the world. You see it with Wolverine too. Like Wolverine's more easily gets his arm chopped off because he knows it's growing back, right? Those of us who was not growing back, we're not so into that. But with invulnerability comes not an ego, but like I'm safe. Like I'm not worried about it. So when Luke Cage had a baby, you're all of a sudden, oh shit, like I'm not invulnerable at all anymore for the rest of my life. Like and that is, of course, as a parent, that is how you feel. Like, oh shit, it's all about this now. Like no matter how much I was talking about me, it's all about this. And so that was, I felt a very honest move for that character and added to it in a way that didn't take anything away. So here comes Superman, and he's got this family. He's trying to build a normal, like a traditional family space, but there's nothing about them that is that. Like that doesn't apply to them. Like all these things, like traditional anything, right? Also, like John is by almost all definition a child with special needs. Like he's not like every other child. He needs special care and attention and different lessons learned and different things. So thinking about it in that way, what's the superhero version of, the teenage years are going to be rough, and without having the character go off and be like, like that was the bad version where John Kent goes, I hate you, Superman, I'm going to go be Lex Luthor for 10 years and come back. Like that's, but to, if anything, have your kid go out into the world and then come back and having achieved everything you'd hope they survived. They got through it. Like John Kent went through hell and came back because of the way you raised, you gave them everything you got and it worked. But it had to be tested literally by fire for John Kent. So it was really about taking the Superman family mythology and connecting it to Jor-El, which was a gift from Dan Jurgens, of turning that character into a more complex piece of Superman lore than it was for decades before, and then tying it into what would happen to John Kent going forward. So it was all about being as interesting and dynamic for the family dynamic as possible, not to take anything away from anybody. Also, they told me, and this is where I felt a little like I wasn't being a jerk, even though I know to some people they don't see it. They kept making Super Sons stuff the entire time we were doing this. So I am, I feel like I'm evolving John Kent. And if you like Super Sons, you're good. They're doing it the whole time, but it still felt like I was taking something off the table and messing around with it. Or I felt this on Avengers Disassembled. Like I had shown up and walked into the playground and kicked all the toys over, and everyone was like, "Hey, who are you?" And like, "Hey, who invited you here?" And so I do know there's a version of that, but I also know, and this happened on Avengers, and it happened pretty quickly on Superman as well. And I thank Tom Taylor for this, is that Tom and the other creators came in on the character and did the idea of what we were trying to do with John and turned it into a wonderful storyline that would not have happened if we had not taken this chance. And that's the whole point. And then people, I know that was a controversial storyline as well, but I must say it's an excellently told story, and it is pure and beautifully told. And that's our job, is to like get the character to the place where the next cool story can be told. And so that's why I don't feel horrible about it, because everybody's fine and good comics are being made. That's all that matters. So, and also they're still making Super Sons. So, but I even felt like maybe the creators weren't all that into it. Once I came in so hot, I came in so excited to touch everything that I may have overstepped in a couple areas because everyone was being so inviting, but I should have looked around and seen where the sensitivities were and stuff. So I do apologize if anybody felt like I was being overbearing, because that certainly wasn't.
No, you were just doing your job, and there's no point in getting angry for comic books.
Oh no, you can get angry. I don't mind. I had people angry at me on every book I've ever been on. I had people angry at me for stuff that people say wonderful things to me about. Now, like I remember, like even when like Ronan showed up in the Avengers movies, and everyone was writing me, "Yay, Ronan!" I'm like, "Oh no! You guys were screaming at me when Ronan first debuted." Like the internet was not happy with me. So it's so funny when there's you wait enough time, people become warmer. Also, it's like even when you make a big change on something, people have to wait a few years to find out if it was worth it. Like, did we get good stuff out of it? And only time will tell. Like even if with my best intentions, I can only think it's a good idea. Only time will tell if it was a good idea. So it's interesting to see which ideas evolve like miles, or which ideas are just of their moment, or which ideas were not a good idea. That was not the right take to do at the moment, no matter how good I felt about it.
So when you left DC Comics, so you switched back to a creator owned, because that's where you started with the creator owned.
A little differently. I'd already signed at Amazon as well. I kind of like went right from DC to Amazon, even though the public just found out about it. I've been there for a while.
Okay. Yeah. So just afterwards, you had signed to Amazon, but still, because you published books at different publisher, not solely Dark Horse, but there have been Image. You also put out some stuff on Substack, which was new. How do you manage where you're going to publish this one kind of a work and another kind? You also do, like we were speaking about Phenomena, which is at Abrams Comic Books, I think. So how do you manage all these projects?
Well, the base of our home is Dark Horse, and it's that's where we're doing most of our work, and that's where Jinx World sits. But like during the pandemic, once Andre and I got like 50 pages into Phenomena, of which you've seen, is this beautifully illustrated book. You have a different look at it. You look at it and go, okay, what do we make? Look at what we're making here. This is different than, where does this belong? Like, so we took a step back, and as having very long conversations about the ever evolving look at publishing, we're like, we put it out there to see who would be interested in publishing it in this new world. I have another project coming out in this space with another creator soon, like next year. But this part of being part of what's happening to book publishing was very interesting as well. So it's just about experience, you know. It's just about being part of these things that I could have only dreamed of even 10 years ago.
But is it harder to, or was it maybe something of a challenge to your writing to get on Phenomena, which is really told in a graphic novel form? It's really a big book, and the rhythm, the pacing is, I guess, really different from what you were used to do in single issues.
As 100% why we did it. It was like it becomes like a part of. Again, I don't want to get too hoity-toity, but there's an opportunity here to like really push and evolve as a creator, as a writer, to like really try new things. Like they're like I think when I realized that I was trying new things on characters that I already worked on, that it wasn't a full commitment to trying new things. Like no, like take away all the safety nets, like everything you can do. Okay, you can do it. Try something else. And I talk about that as a teacher. Some of my friends, some of my closest collaborators in comics have done that right in front of me. I've watched Matt Fraction do it, where he like just like stripped away all the things people think about him and try and start from scratch. And it's very inspiring to want to try that, to see, well, all right, what happens if I take all of this away and try something else. I've also watched a lot of my heroes that I grew up loving do that as well. I've also watched some of my heroes that I grew up loving not do it, not evolve, in fact, fall apart like creatively and emotionally. And it's a bummer to watch. And I think they're sometimes connected. Like if you stay the same as a creator, you get the diminishing returns and those creatively, and then it starts to affect you emotionally. And spiritually, and then you get crankier. And I see a lot of creators that push themselves, and even if they don't hit a home run target, just the act of trying is so good for the soul that the journey continues in a great way. And I look to creators who are doing that. I'm like, okay, that can be done, and I will try it. So that's what almost every choice I'm making right now is about following that specific pursuit. Is like, all right, you did that, and I've tried something else. All right, like what else? And also, what do you have to say now? Like, what have you learned now versus the thing that you learned a few years ago that you already told everybody? So, these are masterpieces about this. The ones that we're doing at Dark Horse, Phenomena. All of these are very specifically about creating something new, something surprising, and also, like I will say, I go, if I was a huge fan of me, I'm not, but if I was a huge fan of me, what would make me like really excited when I walked in a comic store? Like what weird turn would I? And I'm a big fan of Steven Soderbergh, and he's always doing stuff that makes you go, really? Oh, okay, you're gonna do this now. Okay, and sometimes I'm totally on board, and sometimes I'm like, yeah, that's not for me, but okay, that's what you're doing this year. And I look to that as inspiration to what I'm doing. Like if you go to the comic store, you're not going to see a Spider-Man from me this week, but I have this new book called Joy Operations that we worked our asses off, and I can't wait to share it with you.
So I think I'm going to title my article, Brian Bendis is a Steven Soderbergh of comic books.
Oh, no, don't you? No. Wants to be. Hopes to be.
But you're still committed to the single issue format because we've seen a lot in the indie comic book field, creators switching directly to OGN, not doing single issues. But it seems for most of your production that you're still willing to do the monthly chapters.
I do. I will say I have a slight addiction. I mean, I literally had a book come out today. Masterpiece issue 4 came out, and then I woke up and a bunch of people comment that gave us their lovely thoughts and rooting for us, and it was really awesome. I am a bit addicted to that. It's been part of my life for decades, where the book comes out on Wednesday, you get a response on Wednesday. but there's also this gorgeous. What was the question again? I'm sorry.
That you were still committed to the single issue, the monthly format, because you were addicted to the Wednesday adrenaline rush when you've got the comments from the readers.
No, I like them and I like making them, and I actually like there's something very healthy about creating that much work and that much time and then putting it out. There's I actually like the shape of it. I think that's why they're still alive too, is that there's something like, oh, this is how we spent our month. And then you get to put it out very quickly. But so I'm committed and have them coming out for the next few years. They're all scheduled. But I will say that the craft and everything around making a full graphic novel and releasing it and having that experience of someone reading it all at once is very exciting and a very powerful experience on its own. So it's also funny, it just so happens that Ed Brubaker's living here right now because he's prepping his show Criminal for Amazon, and he has been working in the graphic novel space for a few years. So we've been talking at great length about this very subject, about the pros and cons of the monthly versus the graphic novel, of which there are pros to both. So I like both. And then also, you mentioned Substack. There's this other evolution going on of how comics are being delivered digitally to any audience, whether it be through newsletters or any digital webtoons, any service like that as well. So that there's that space as well, and they're all equally valid and they're all equally on fire as far as what they can do. So for my heart is I'm all in on the monthlies. They are very good to me and they are my home. But I look at all of these spaces as just it's so exciting because they're just all on fire. They're all trying new things constantly. And I just want to be part of it and see what I could add to it and see how it feels just making them. I hope that doesn't sound like a weird answer, but so yes to both is really the answer. That's really what I'm doing at both times.
And you still have to manage the time, because I don't know how many comic books you're writing at the. Okay. There's one question also I had because I spoke to David Mack now 2 years ago, I think that was, at New York Comic Con in 2022, and he told me, and I don't think he was lying, that he was working on the follow-up of Cover. So we need updates about Cover.
No, that is in his hand. David is one of my bestest friends. So when I tell you that I am patient that he has script and he will get to it when he can. It has been David. I'm not allowed to say what David's working on, but David has been offered a few things that are even somehow better than doing your own book with your friend. So I am patiently waiting for that to happen. And at the same time, I'm hoping that we can get Cover rolling at Amazon as well, because it is something that would be a very fun show to make. We were attempting to do it as an animated project at HBO. Yeah. That whole, everything about that went away. They couldn't have been nicer about it. We had a good time. I got to write the pilot, and they went to pilot with it. They made a presentation with it, but the presentation didn't work as well as it could have. Parts of it were gorgeous. Watching David Mack's, if you're a fan of his, the watercolor, they found a way to really animate it in a way that feels like David's actually painting it as it's happening. Oh my God, so beautiful. So parts of it were absolutely beautiful, but other parts weren't ready for prime time yet. And then again, another version of everyone who said, "Hey, we would like to make a Cover TV show," was fired. They were just gone. They even hired me to make a Legion of Superheroes TV show, and that was going great. And then everyone I didn't even know who to hand it into. Once I finished it, it was oh, has anyone got my check? Yeah, that's how chaotic it was there for a little bit. So again, I'm so grateful for the opportunities immensely, but then it just, you're like, oh, okay, this one's not going to go as good as others have gone.
Yeah. But it's especially more frustrating because we don't have the end of it, because if there's no communication, we're still waiting. And actually, I was still waiting for news about the animated the show, the cover animated show. But now you're telling me it's not gonna see the.
Yeah, it's weird. It's because it's hard to like tell people things aren't happening because you don't. Rarely does anyone call you up and say,
also, it's not.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying. Normally, they don't call you up and going, "It's dead." It just no one says anything, so you're just not totally sure. And then also, I've had things feel like, "Oh, they're dead," and then the next day, someone calls up and goes, "Hi, I'm the new president of blah blah blah, and we're making this." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And like, there's been a reversal of fortune, both negative and positive, that can happen. So you're hesitant to ever say anything's dead, including like I have a book called Torso that's been in development since the 90s.
Yeah.
Right. Constantly in development with the major filmmakers. Some wonderful experiences in my life behind the scenes, but nothing to show for it. like in the public space. Right. So it's hard to like even call that dead because it never has been really. So for you, journalists, frustrating. You're looking for like
or even even as a fan, or just a reader, who just appreciated the lot cover and think that's one of your best work, actually.
No, I appreciate that. And there's more to come. There's more story to do, and hopefully we'll get to do it. I appreciate that. But thank you. But it was just a perfect example of. Yeah, sometimes you don't hear what happens because we're not sure and don't want to like close the door because no one told us to. Why would we?
But that's interesting that you mentioned Torso, because when I wrote about the Amazon news and the fact that already 3 shows were in development and active development with showrunners and writers, I had to do a few researches, and also Goldfish was in development at some point.
Oh yeah, that was back in the 90s though. That was that was the first option I ever had.
I was a toddler, but the thing is, did something change in the course of the last years? Is it because they found somehow how to make your comic books into the shows? Because it seems like when you're just writing your thrillers, it's not complicated to adapt. Technically, it's not. You don't have a lot of visual effects because you're not with superhero stuff, so. I'm really trying to figure out if you have any clues of what makes sometimes the adaptation so long to take, and if something changed with Amazon.
Yeah, I don't know why things take as long as they take sometimes, and particularly that's why a lot of us who love comics so much stay in comics even when there's something happening in the Hollywood space, because the Hollywood space, even when it's very, very healthy, can take a very long time. It's with every move in the positive in development, more and more people attach and more things attach, right? Until it gets into production, and then there's literally hundreds of people attached and hundreds and maybe a handful of companies, and like it gets slower and slower, like harder to push it up the hill because more and more things jump on it. So it takes longer, but sometimes things work very quickly, and sometimes things work very healthy. Sometimes things literally stumble their way out into the world and then end up being great. Like you think, oh, this is terrible, this is terrible. Oh, it came together. Literally anything can happen. So that's part of some people's like addiction to being in this space, is that it's anything can happen. Like Miles could win an Oscar is not words I would have said while I was typing the first words of Miles Morales, right? That never. Also, things not working out or you're always thinking the best thing of the moment. So what I've learned is if I stay as truthful as I can as a creator in the moment that I'm writing, like just be with the character and really, really think about all the positives of comics and why someone comes to make, like I even think about like, why does someone buy an independent comic in this day and age when all of the world's stories are available to you for free, like in any format. Like you can literally get your hands on anything that's ever been made, and people are still coming to a comic book store looking for something brand new because they want to be part of something brand new. They want to be something that they haven't seen before. And I think that that's our number one, with great power comes great responsibility, job as comic creators, is to remember that if people are still buying these books this way, think about what you're promising them, which is something else, something different, something evolved from the genre that they're used to. So yeah, that's all I think about. And then from that, if I keep it pure, almost every time I've just kept it there, something like this has opened up without me pushing, if that makes sense. Like we created Pearl is a perfect example. If Pearl is a checklist of things Hollywood does not say they're looking for, right? Just everything about it. And that was like us. We're not trying to make a TV show here. We're trying to make a comic book about something very important to us, about 7 things that are very important to both me and Michael. And we put it in the character Pearl. And when Amazon said, "Hey, we'd like to develop Pearl," I went, "Really?" I was so happy. But but I knew in my heart we had kept it as pure as possible. Like we made no choice that was a Hollywood pitch. So that would be, if I learned anything from it, is just keep it pure. Don't worry about it. Don't. I know it seems impossible when it's, if you're a creator and it's Hollywood and maybe, wouldn't it be great? But just keep it pure. Just make it about the character in the moment and the story that you're telling. And if you do that, other creators will gravitate towards it in a healthy space. And if you don't, they won't. I've seen both happen.
So you said that people are still buying comic books, which is great. Because it still gives you a job, but you're still also willing to write comic books, whereas you could be doing other stuff. So what do you think about the strength of the comic book as a medium to storytelling? A lot of creators that I interview but say that it's faster to do comics books and you have more creativity. Is it something also that I guess you advocate for?
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, the creativity. I have so many friends and so many other jobs in creative jobs, and I'm so blessed to I don't have to deal with a lot of stuff. Like I have some friends that work in advertising. They don't feel very creative sometimes, and I don't mean to poo-poo it, but there's a level of freedom that I feel constantly with, even working on Superman or Spider-Man. There was the whole idea is do something with it, make it more, right? That's the job. And so with that comes a lot of yes-anding. And then what I've discovered over the years is that job isn't over at the creative space. We're creating a story that the reader is going to pick up, and they're collaborating with it as well. To take it back to Scott McCloud's philosophy about the invisible art of comic books, the panels, the space in between the borders, the space in between the panels is where the audience does a lot of filling in the story. They're writing with you. They're filling in the blanks, putting in the character's voice. We've all done it as readers, but being an author of comics, you realize that you are also setting up that experience for people to read, maybe in many different languages. So people reading comics are here for that specific experience. They could just turn on YouTube and zone out and just take in any story. They can watch any movie, but they're opening the book to share the moment with the characters, with the authors of the book, the artists and writers that made this. And I do think that when people get very happy with us or very angry with us, it's because we're taking them along onto a journey that they're involved in. They're not just watching passively. They've invested financially and emotionally into the space of this thing. I know I sound like a Portland hippie professor, but I've seen it happen thousands of times where it's really about you buy comics for the experience of comics. and that the authors that make the most of it are the ones that get the best returns of it. And then somehow it translates to other mediums too. It evolves into that as well.
When you're creating a whole new project in creator-owned, let's say the masterpiece, for example, from Dark Horse or Phenomena, what's the starting point to your journey as a creator? Is it the characters that you want to speak about? Is this the world building, or is this maybe the thematics about what the book is really going to be about?
Well, it's all of those things, but you think about
that's too easy to
I know. I got a good one for this. This is a recent kind of thought process I've been going through about, because I've watched a lot of genuine. We've all seen it. Like let's talk about movies. There's some movies that are just beautiful to look at. Just like the world building is stunning, right? And then nobody cares. Like the audience does not show up. There's like to the point where like really like all that, like you see all this work going on, it just doesn't move anybody. And I'm talking to our students about it, and it really comes down to I think about what our job is in that, like, and it really comes down to the balance between world building and character. But the balance has to come like this. You think about the natural instinct of a person when they say these words. Hey, Saturday night, there's going to be the craziest party you've ever seen. It's going to be nuts. Like you say to someone, I got the craziest party. What's the first thing, no matter what you say, the first thing they would say is, who's going to be there? Right? So that is, you think about, take that into storytelling. It's, hey, I've got a world where the corporations own the cities. Oh, okay. Who's going to be like, who am I hanging out with is the question, right? So you create that special space that is where, but if you don't have that person that the audience is interested in to being around with, hanging out with, and you see sometimes even there's some hit TV shows where you're like, oh, people just like that hang. People just want to be like, people just like to breathe that space. They don't even care what's happening, right? And so that's my thing is to make sure the world is something unique that hasn't been seen, and then also put the characters in there and their relationship in there that is something that is compelling. Like, and again, there's sometimes it's a challenge. Like with Joy Operations, we've literally created a narrative where one character is inside another character, and we don't tell you what's happening until like the middle of the first issue. And it's almost like a challenge of an invitation. But when you get there, the people who are involved completely like they loved it because it was more of a puzzle to get into, right? So it gets more of a reward for it at the end. And sometimes it's just like Phenomena is a very complicated road trip, but it's, a couple of friends walking on an adventure, and it's the hang. It's seeing what they see and experiencing what they experience. But so that's my answer. That's my very long answer to a thing I think about 24 hours a day. So I'm sorry for the long answer. It was actually a short answer.
It wasn't the longest answer you gave me during this interview, actually. So don't worry. But speaking about, I would like to conclude on Phenomena because there seems to be a massive world building in that book, and I wanted to know if you had conceived and did a Bible with Andre. With that, how do you two literally build that world together?
This was one of the most unique collaborations, and even speaking to you about it today is unique because even as we speak, this week is the week I have to hand in the script for volume 3 to the letterer. It's all drawn, and I'm literally spending my week every night this week going through Andre's choices and rewriting what I wrote for the letterer to do the best they can do for the first draft of that. So I am towards the end of a multi-year collaboration with Andre that we're both going high five. We're like we did it, and like he's literally drawing the cover to volume 3 this week, just so you can understand where I am in my headspace. We started this literally doing everything I tell my students to do, which is I saw someone, I love their work. Andre had worked with my friend Sam Humphreys, so I'd heard he was a blast to work with. So I'd heard good things. When I came to DC, I was like, oh, hey, come do some Legion, come do some Young Justice, like the little shorts, the little, let's see, but his work was speaking to me so strongly, like I was really like pulled towards it. And so we did a couple shorts. I'm like, oh, okay, I got to work with this guy. Like immediately, like I remember there's one page of Young Justice he handed in. I'm like, okay, that's it. We're a team. Like whether he likes it or not, we're making comics together. And then I came to him and I said, boy, I think about your work all the time. And let me know if you're in the mood to do something like this. And he unloaded on me. He sent me, he goes, well, I have a bunch of pitches and they didn't go anywhere. And I'm like, well, send like, because that's why I asked, what do you want to draw? Like, that's why I asked like creators that I want to work with. I'm like, what do you want to draw? No one's letting you draw. Like, what's like, where's your heart right now? Like, what have you been sketching for no reason? Right. And, because I think that's the real stuff. Right. And sometimes I've been really right about that. And, so he sent me like 6 or 7 ideas all in his pen, but because I saw them all at once, I said, I think this is all one giant world you built. Like this is, you put it all together. This is amazing, right? And he was agreeable to that idea. And then I literally took all his sketches and I walked away and I came back with a character based on one of my children, based on one of his children, and Spike, who kind of represents the crankiest version of both of us, and started evolving this story really around Andre's voice and what it made me think of. And we had some ideas about story and what the world would be like. And also, we were coming out of a time in comics where there was a lot of post-apocalyptic disasters, like a lot of them, some of them excellent. But I was so much more interested in the evolution of that idea. Like, what if something happened to the world and it wasn't terrible? Like, it was just different and everyone's dealing with it. And it was good for some and not good for others. And hey, what if money wasn't a thing anymore? Like, how would the world work? And then we came up with the idea that your story is your currency. And that idea allowed us into more ideas about storytelling and story and where our world was going and how maybe capitalism, though it's excellent and I love money, isn't maybe the answer to all the problems. And so that we can like, what would happen if we took that out of there? Would the world be better? And so we started evolving the world of phenomena into something that was magical and unique. And now we're 3 volumes later. And I'm so proud of what Andre's accomplished, and that I got to stand next to it and cheer it on. I can't even tell you. We're about to run out and sell the 2nd volume that's coming out next month, and it's the most beautiful thing. It's just so beautiful.
And we have to wait a little bit later in France because for them, actually, the one I've got is not out yet in the public libraries for now, but it's going to come out like in 1 week or 2. But I guess it was also a common choice to not have any colors in that. And even though our French format is smaller than the usual comics that we have, American comics, in the United States it's standard. It's in standard form. It's not like done like a manga. You didn't want to appeal to manga audience with this black and white pages.
No, I want to appeal to anybody who wants to read it, but what we didn't want to do was kind of package it as a manga when it's not, and also to like, and sometimes things get packaged in a format that they're just begging that those people, please see us as something you must buy, and I mean, particular in the YA space, there's been a lot of things that look like a lot of other things. And part of the conversation with Phenomena is, well, maybe some of that audience will have evolved their taste a little bit and would be looking for other things and other, right? And Andre is other, and let's celebrate that and not take it away. And as far as it being black and white, I love his work in color and have worked with him in color with his partner Chris, who's excellent, does our covers. But every time I see his work in black and white, I'm quite moved. I'm quite taken aback personally. And because I came up in black and white, and there was the whole time I was working in black and white, like crime novels in the 90s, people were like, "Oh, you're going to finish it and put it in color?" Like, no, it's black and white. It's supposed to be black and white, but it was always seemed as unfinished or less than, or oh, you poor thing, you're in black and white. And I'm like, no, it's supposed to be. And then over the years, you see things like Bone and Walking Dead come out, and they're championed to be in black and white. And I was like, oh, if I'm feeling more emotional about this in black and white, then it should be in black and white. Let's celebrate that. So that was the choice. And we had a couple publishers make us some pretty keen offers to do it in color, if it would be in color. And Abrams agreed that black and white was a strong take to take. And yeah, I again, a lot of people imitating a lot of people. And if you have something unique to offer, and that's what Andre has, then you should celebrate that, not try to, make it look like everything else sometimes.
But in terms of script, because some panels and some pages are really detailed, like I said, you could be the whole world, and you've got tons and tons of magic and gigantic creatures and stuff like that. But is it in the script, or do you let Andre a lot of freedom to just also let his imagination go, so long as just the main characters or the main action is here?
No, it's we had a pretty good process. What we would do is I was writing, because we weren't sure if it was graphic novels, but we started kind of working on it like it was going to be an ongoing series.
Okay.
So it's always like about 25, 30 pages ahead of him in story, like a scripted story, even though we had the shape of all the worlds we were going to, and literally we made a map. Like we like literally places to go and things to do, and all of Andre's sketch work was coming in. Like things were being built. Like we're headed towards that thing you built. Like the Golden City of Eyes was built, and then we placed it right. So so all of these things are designed, and then Andre would just throw characters at me, just like the ideas, and some of them I would just cherry pick the ones that like, oh yeah, let's use that one and that one. And I would yes and what these characters look like to me and put them in there. So we were building like it was like a good mix of, we know exactly where we're going, but the characters are journeying, and everywhere they look, we have to build something new. Like anytime they turn their head and look, oh, there's something we haven't seen before, like everywhere. So that was the fun part. So and everything has to. So if you turn your head and you see like a giant monster bones, there's a story there. Something happened where there's giant monster bones, and we write the whole story and how it connects to the history of it and what have you. And sometimes I will bring that in script, and then Andre will like take that and go with it, or Andre will go, what if it's a crashed spaceship, and they'll just like draw something equally epic or more epic in that space that tells the same kind of thing, but then makes me go, but then what if, and then so we're yes-anding ourselves all the way to the end of the series. It involves, for every graphic novel I found out, it was about 1,000 pages of typing, or 140 pages of like that's how much back and forth goes on with the script work. Yeah. To specifically to create less dialogue on the page, so I'm not covering up good stuff.
But you also had to create a kind of a new language, because when especially at the beginning, you have to accommodate yourself to how they're speaking, and that's also, is it something easy for writers such as you?
I like language, and I like evolving language and terms. I'm of an age now where I get to go, oh, look what words don't exist anymore. Like not like bad words. I'm talking about like words we used all the time, like fax machine. Like that was a word you heard 50 times a day, and now you never hear it anymore. I'm just fascinated by just the music of language and how it evolves as we go, and thinking about how phenomena. There's something happened in phenomena where the world changed, and here we are. We say about 7 years later, right? So it's about 7 years of this giant cultural shift. Language would evolve, and also story is currency. So the way people speak specifically, you'll notice when they talk about story, when they tell their story, they're very specific and they're looser with the language than when they're just talking. And then that's things like that is what we get real focused on. Yeah, and also one of my favorite things, not only to watch but to write, is when there's two characters and one won't shut up and one is desperate for the other one to shut up. It's, going back to Abbott and Costello, Fargo. It's my favorite kind of dynamic, when the other person would like the other one to stop talking.
Okay, and I'm going to ask my last question, which is more general, because I'll be waiting for all three books of Phenomena to be out to ask you more questions about the story when the whole picture will be out. But it's a very broad question because I think you've heard about AI. Yes. I wanted to know if, as the creator, as the writer, you were worried about the use of AI in creative fields, and especially in comic books, for the creation of series scripts or pages.
I'm not using it at the moment, and have no plans to in the future. At the moment, AI is a stealing machine. It's just vacuuming up other people's hard work and passion and vision. Eventually, you could perceive, as a writer of science fiction, that AI will be a tool like Photoshop, like clip art before it, that is something that people use to evolve their vision creatively. At the moment, that's not what's happening. At the moment, it's like, I don't know. It seems a thievery to me. Like when someone posts like a Batman comic that looks like it was drawn by Brian Boland, and Brian Boland didn't draw it. That doesn't seem. That just seems like so egregious to me. So also, a lot of me and my friends who make stuff for a living, looking at the world of AI, going, yeah, but it's the making the stuff that's the good part. Like, it's not like rushing to the final version of it. It's the making of it, and people like to read things that were made by other people. I posted a clip on my Instagram just today, actually, by the producer Rick Rubin, who said, yeah, computers can make perfect music. It is so uninteresting to the human ear. Like people like to hear the humanity, which is what the quote unquote mistakes, like the little things that are not, that's what people watch Saturday Night Live. Like, they might blow it. Like that's the excitement of watching it. So I'm open to the evolution of our species and the evolution of ourselves as artists, and using all these tools to do so. But they have to obviously be used with all of our human rights intact, and that's not what's happening right now. So yeah, that's my answer. But it will. I think I'm just of an age where I remember people freaking out about Photoshop, and I'm like, oh, that's it. There's going to be no more illustrators. They invented Photoshop. That's not what happened. You still need us. You still need people who have something to say.
It seems quite.
And might not even know why they have to say it. That's what.
Yeah, it just seems a little bit different than the use of Photoshop or the digital age of arts, because, like you said, it's just pulling out big data from everyone's work to just spit out something that looks like. But when you're using for Photoshop, you still have to create something. You're not just stealing stuff, and that's maybe what's the really precise difference between these tools.
No, I'm just talking about the emotions surrounding the invention of it. We're very similar. I'm very aware of the big difference. So yeah, I Very curious to see what happens in the next couple of years. It's going to be a very interesting time. But
you don't fear or think that your job could be harmed by the use of AI. For example, if I'm going to stop the interview and then I'm going to on my chat GPT and say, okay, write me a comic book, 20 pages of a thriller in Brian Michael Bendis style. Let's do it like an alias.
A lot of spelling mistakes for a computer to make.
But don't you think that somehow, maybe not at this point, but it's evolving fast? And
it is. Listen, we'll see what happens. It is the Wild West, as they say, right now. But I have to say that part of this, and we've discussed for a good part of this, is that there's a life experience that comes with making stuff, and the computer can't replace my personal life experience of there's a journey here that I'm on that the results are the comic books that I make and share with everybody. But that's what you find out that's the good part. So I'm not looking even if a computer can completely imitate what I'm doing, I still want the experience of doing it. So that's where I am right now. Yeah.
Okay. What does the future hold?
Also,
for you,
I wouldn't mind taking a nap. If someone out there can make a comic that I can go play video games. No, I'm joking. What were we going to say? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to conclude by saying what's next for you. So we've got Joy Operations, we've got Masterpiece, we know we've got your shows at Amazon. So and Phenomena book 2, which is going to be out. And so, what can you tell us about the?
Well, yeah, you said it very very well. I have the next couple of years of my life are a journey of create around, of new worlds, of revisiting some worlds that we've built over the last few years. So. If you're here listening to us talk about Marvel, I will tell you that if you liked any of my Marvel or DC work, that the same passion is going into these new creator-owned ideas. So, come check it out. If you liked our work on Daredevil, I know that Masterpiece is really hitting people well. The book, new crime book I'm doing with Alex Maleev that's coming out from Dark Horse right now. We have The Ones, which I do with Jacob Edgar. It's a book about what if everybody who was a chosen one has to team up to be in a team of chosen ones. That is a book that we love doing, and that continues at Dark Horse as well. And then The Phenomena is a graphic novel series that we're doing through Abrams. And who publishes it in France?
Urban Comics.
Yeah, we're very lucky. It's being published all over the world by many different partners, and it's this beautiful, lushly illustrated book about what happens next, hopefully, to us. And so that, and I have new books coming out with my dear friend Michael A. Van Oming, and some new stuff coming on down the line. But yeah, we're very excited also about the return of Joy Operations, which is a brand new sci-fi world we designed last year with me and Stephen Byrne, who did Nightwing. And it's just an absolutely beautiful book. So you can check that out as well. So yeah, a lot of creator-owned stuff. And then in the meantime, my day job is to get Jinx, Pearl, and Murder Inc. and whatever else we're cooking up at Amazon and see if we can't make some fun TV shows. So fingers crossed in that area as well. And the Spider-Verse continues. They just released the new short film this week for when we're recording this. So there's a new beautiful Miles content as we go. So thanks to everyone who keeps watching and tweeting and not tweeting. I'm off of Twitter, but hitting us on the threads and social media on that. It's just brilliant. All the cosplay, it's unbelievable. It's just constant.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks a lot, Brian.
Sorry, jinxworld.com. We moved our newsletter off of Substack. So if you go to jinxworld.com, sign up for the newsletter. We'll keep you updated on everything. It also includes classes and free comics and all kinds of stuff that we've been doing in the digital space as well. So if you're trying to make your own comics, we have dozens of hours of classes of me and my friends telling you what we've learned so far. So come join the community.
I subscribed. I'm subscribed to your newsletter, but I put the link to the website in the podcast description. Be assured of that.
In the chaos that is social media, it is now the best way to say hi to everybody. Here's an email. How you doing? Yeah.
So thanks a lot again for your time, and I hope we have another opportunities to chat. Whereas it will be online or in real life, it depends. But I'm looking forward to the next time we'll chat together. Thank you.
Will you be at the show?
I will be at the show. Yeah.
All right. Please come by and say hi. Okay.
Oh yeah, I will.
All right. Thank you. These are excellent questions. Thank you for this lovely conversation. I hope it wasn't too all over the place.
No, and I hope you liked it. That's also my main goal is I'm losing my words, but the worst fear I have is to be boring someone I would interview. That's really like that's one of my worst fears. Just after dying,
you can spend the day relieved that did not happen today. Okay.
Yeah,
that's what I can do.